These days, it can feel like every financial advisor is preaching the same thing. You should be doing Roth conversions for your situation. And listen, Roth conversions can be a powerful planning move, but they're not a general strategy for all. They're a precise strategy for some. So before you jump on the Roth conversion bandwagon, let's slow down. Roth conversions work best when they're part of a bigger plan, not just some knee-jerk tax move. In this video, we're going to be walking through 6 reasons a Roth conversion might not make sense for your situation. Let's dive in. Reason number 1, this is by far the most common and most logical reason to skip Roth conversions. Your IRAs are simply not large enough to justify it. I see a lot of advisors pitch Roth conversions like a magic trick. Convert now and enjoy a tax-free retirement. It sounds compelling. But let's be clear, Roth conversions don't give you a tax-free retirement. You're just choosing when to pay taxes, now instead of later. The real goal isn't zero taxes after a certain point, it's maximizing after-tax values across your whole plan. And sometimes that means leaving your IRA alone. Roth conversions work best for high net worth retirees with large IRAs and a tax spike coming down the road, often due to required minimum distributions. In those cases, conversions can smooth taxes out over time, replacing a barbell of low taxes now and high taxes later with a steady, more manageable rate. What if you're a retiree with modest IRA balances? You might be able to manage your tax bill just by adjusting your withdrawal strategy. Here's an example. A couple in their mid-60s with $1.1 million saved, including about $450,000 in tax-deferred accounts. With proper diversification and a thoughtful drawdown plan, say blending taxable, tax-deferred, and Roth withdrawals, they can often avoid conversions entirely and still keep their taxes incredibly low. Let me show you what I mean by using an annual tax graph for this couple. Now we're going to assume they've already started Social Security, even though that might not happen until a little bit later in their plan. To keep things simple, we're just showing everything in today's dollars. Now they need about $50,000 a year on top of what they already have for Social Security to fund their lifestyle. If we pulled that entirely from IRAs, here's what would happen. The first $20,000 or so is tax-free thanks to the standard deduction. Now, the reason only $20,000 here is tax-free and not the full $30,000 plus that you would expect looking at the current standard deduction is because that $20,000 withdrawal moves some Social Security into being taxable as well. But after that, they quickly hit marginal rates between 18.5% all the way up to 26.5%. That's not efficient. Instead, we can take a smarter approach by coordinating withdrawals between their IRA and taxable accounts. Here's how. We start by pulling $21,000 from their IRA, just enough to fill up that 0% bracket or standard deduction. After that, we shift to the taxable account. Those capital gains are taxed differently and more favorably. Now, at this point in their overall withdrawals, they will be in the 0% long-term capital gains bracket. However, those taxable account withdrawals won't be taxed at 0%, because as they add capital gains to their tax situation, they're going to move more Social Security benefit into now becoming taxable, which carries a cost. But even after that interaction, the marginal tax rates are still much lower than pulling everything from their IRA. By blending these sources, IRAs in that 0% zone, then as much as they need from their taxable account, they can generate over $100,000 in income and keep their tax bill under $2,000, even if they have a really low cost basis in that taxable account. All of this without doing any Roth conversions. Now that is the power of smart withdrawal sequencing. And it's why when IRA balances are modest, conversions often aren't necessary. So what counts as quote unquote modest? Well, that depends on the rest of the plan. How much is in taxable and Roth accounts, income needs, healthcare costs, and more. But the point is, Roth conversions aren't a default move. They're a precision tool. Reason number 2 might not rule out conversions indefinitely, but will for some period of time. Let's say you're in a situation where you have a big capital gain event. This could come from selling a business or some other work-related event, rebalancing a non-diversified taxable account, selling an investment property, and more. In the context of the US tax code, capital gains stack on top of ordinary income to determine taxability. So let's say there's a retiree with a $350,000 capital gain event. Any Roth conversion they do will have the effect of pushing capital gains into higher brackets. So they receive a double taxation of sorts. They will pay ordinary income tax on the Roth conversion, but then that conversion will push their capital gains into being taxed at higher rates, higher brackets. Now, in this specific situation I have on the screen, there could be some room for small conversions, maybe up to $17,000 in total conversions, but effectively after that, there's likely no benefit for conversions. They are likely paying too high of a tax rate. In this kind of year, the smarter move is to usually take the capital gains hit, then come back to Roth conversions later if it makes sense in their plan once their tax picture normalizes. Reason number 3, Roth conversions might not make sense if you're retiring early, before age 59 and a half, and your plan relies heavily on your taxable account to bridge the gap until you can access retirement accounts without penalties. Here's an example. This is a retiree stepping away at age 54. They need about $115,000 a year to support their lifestyle, and they've only got $675,000 in their taxable account. Now remember, you generally can't touch traditional retirement accounts before 59 and a half without triggering early withdrawal penalties, unless you set up something like a 72T distribution, which comes with its own set of limitations, or you work long enough to use the rule of 55. So in this case, the taxable account is doing all of the heavy lifting. It's their only penalty-free source of income for the next 5 to 6 years. If we start doing Roth conversions in this window, we might be creating a problem. Why? Because the money to pay the tax bill on conversions has to come from somewhere, and that quote-unquote somewhere is probably the taxable account. And the more that we deplete the taxable account now, the more we shrink its ability to fund those early retirement years. That's creating a risk. Worse, if that taxable account runs out too soon, they may be forced to dip into those retirement accounts, triggering early penalties and accelerating taxes. It becomes a domino effect of bad outcomes here. In short, liquidity is king in early retirement. In this case, you might want to wait till you're closer to 59 and a half or past 59 and a half to perform any Roth conversions. Reason number 4, here's another key reason to delay or avoid Roth conversions, especially if you're retiring before age 65. Health insurance. If you're not yet eligible for Medicare, there's a good chance you'll be using the ACA marketplace coverage. And here's the catch. The amount that you pay for that insurance is tied directly to how much income you report. Higher income, higher premiums, sometimes much higher. Take a look at the example on the screen. 2 identical retirees, same coverage, same location. One is reporting a low income and earning a very generous ACA subsidy. The other, no subsidy and paying over $20,000 more per year for the exact same plan. Now in 2025, ACA still offers some flexibility. You can show a relatively high income and still receive partial subsidies. But that's changing. In 2026, under current law, subsidies will phase out entirely once a couple earns more than about $80,000 of modified adjusted gross income, or MAGI. And remember, every dollar of Roth conversions increases your reported income. That can mean phasing out your ACA subsidy and triggering what amounts to some massive marginal tax rates. We've broken this down in detail in another video that I'm going to link to in the upper right-hand corner, but here's the short version. In the example on the screen, a couple could report $40,000 of reported income using taxable and Roth funds. But if they add $10,000 of additional Roth conversion, raising their income to $50,000, they face a marginal tax rate of 45% on that conversion when you combine the tax rate as well as the subsidy loss. Another $10,000 on top of that, they pay 30% on that slice. It starts to add up really quickly. So unless a retiree absolutely needs to convert because of massive tax problems down the road, the smart play during ACA years is often to keep income low and preserve that subsidy. But most advisors and retirees don't run the numbers deep enough to catch this hidden cost. This is another reason why Roth conversions need to be coordinated, not just automatic. Reason number 5, your heirs will be in lower tax brackets. Roth conversions are often pitched as a legacy move. Convert now so your kids don't get stuck with a big tax bill later. And in some cases, that's true. But here's the thing. When we think about Roth conversions through a legacy lens, we have to balance 2 variables. The taxes that you'll pay during your lifetime, and then the taxes your heirs will pay after you're gone. You can't treat these as separate decisions. If you've got large IRAs and you're headed for high tax brackets later in retirement, and your heirs are in high income careers, then conversions can be a win-win because we have high taxes in your life and high taxes in the heirs' lives. But what if your IRA balance is more modest and your kids are in lower tax brackets than you are? Maybe they're teachers, social workers, or just not earning at a high level. In this case, large Roth conversions means you're voluntarily paying more tax today than your heirs would ever have to pay. And that's a problem because at its core, a Roth conversion in this context means you're prepaying someone else's tax bill at a higher rate than they would owe. That's not very smart planning. I've seen retirees in their 60s and 70s convert hundreds of thousands at 22, 24, and 32%, only to find their kids could eventually take withdrawals out at 12% or 22% or less. That's a planning mismatch with real dollars lost. Remember as well that you and your spouse are one tax situation, If you pass money on to 3 kids, you spread tax liabilities out over 3 different tax situations. This in and of itself has a tax savings effect. Now, there are some strategic reasons to convert in some estate plans, especially if you're prioritizing legacy goals, or if you suspect your heirs will be moving into higher income brackets later. But the tax arbitrage has to work in your favor. Otherwise, you're just locking in a tax bill now that could have been paid at cheaper rates down the line. Reason number 6, you or your advisor don't have the resources or expertise. This one might sting a little bit. It might bruise an ego or two, but it's still important. You've probably noticed on this channel that we go fairly deep into the weeds at times. We use tax graph, marginal rate curves, Medicare brackets, Roth sequencing, all of it. And every time I do, I get a few comments saying, this is way too complicated, or you're a bad explainer. I'm more confused now than when I started. And hey, maybe they're right. Maybe I could be a better communicator. But maybe, just maybe, retirement tax planning is more complex than you think. And if this stuff feels confusing, like you don't fully grasp it, you're in over your skis trying to DIY it. Look, I'm not using proprietary Wall Street algorithms here. These concepts that I teach are actually mostly the basics of advanced planning. There are things that I would expect an advisor to know before hiring them here at Safeguard. The tools that we use, professional grade tax projection software, integrated withdrawal modeling, and scenario analysis, are often not available to the average investor. Many advisors don't even use them. Why? Well, 1, because it takes time, training, and experience to use them correctly. But then number 2, oftentimes these companies don't even offer a retail solution. But the point here is really, you can't just wing retirement tax planning. Roth conversions aren't something you can ballpark and hope for the best. The cost between doing it right and doing it wrong isn't minor. It's not a missed deduction or a few thousands in savings. It can mean tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars lost over the course of retirement. In fact, a poorly executed Roth conversion strategy can actually leave you worse off than if you did nothing at all. And just to be clear, this isn't some hidden sales pitch. I'm not trying to gatekeep or push you to hire us specifically. We're fortunate to have more than enough demand, which is why you'll notice I don't include hard call to actions to hire us in these videos. I say this because a small percentage of you will hear it, recognize the complexity, and get the help that you need. And if that saves you from a costly mistake, well, that's a win in my book. So if you're doing this yourself or working with an advisor that isn't modeling these strategies across your full financial picture, this may not be the time for Roth conversions. Not until you or your team has the tools and planning discipline to do it right. Because when it comes down to Roth conversions, kind of right is often very wrong. Now, I've seen a few other advisors post a video along these same lines. X number of reasons you shouldn't Roth convert. And one of the most common reasons is not having a taxable account to pay Roth conversion taxes from. Now, I want to be very careful with how I phrase this. This often quoted reason is complete nonsense. And let me show you why in this video right here. Click here to learn more, and always remember, you don't need more money, you need a better plan. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.